I want to welcome everyone and call tonight's public hearing on the budgets for Monroe County Fire Protection District, Monroe County Waste Reduction District, and Monroe County itself to order for Tuesday, October 8th. We are here in the Nat U Hill Room. I want to note for the record, here present inside the room, we have Councilors Hawk, Councilor McKim, Councilor Iverson, Councilor Wills, Councilor Crossley, and I am Trent Deckard. Cheryl Munson is absent this evening. All right, and so we will move on to adoption of agenda. Does any counselor wish to amend tonight's agenda? Yes, Councilor Crossley.
Okay. Mr. President, I would like to make a motion to add the ordinance 2024-43 to our agenda, as well as make that the first topic of discussion before we get into the public hearings.
Okay. Second. We've got a motion and a second to add the ordinance 2024-43 modifying local income tax rates. Discussion from council. I'm going to look to my right. Councilor Hawk.
Separately, like the reduction of the special purpose tax separately, and then voting on the jail tax or together. It doesn't matter. I just wonder. That's why I thought we did last time, but maybe not.
Councilor Hawk, it would be one ordinance, and Ms. Turner King is nodding her head that is the chair's got that right. Other comments on this amendment as offered? All right. Seeing no counselor online, I will go to a voice vote on adopting the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment as offered signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. The agenda is amended now to have the approval of ordinance 2024-43 modifying local income tax rates as the first item after adoption of agenda.
Council, I move to approve ordinance 2024-43 modifying local income tax rates.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. And as a reminder to the public and for the record, the council had a first reading and public hearing yesterday regarding the modification of the local income tax rate for the correctional or rehabilitation from facilities, from a 0.01% to a 0.17%. I'm getting a little feedback myself. All right. Any comments from the council before we vote on this measure? Yes, Councilor McKim.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it should come as no surprise that I'm supporting this this ordinance, but I did want to address a comment that a member of the public yesterday made that I think is a fair point, but deserves address, and that was the issue of the bond rates, and that right now is not a particularly favorable time to be borrowing money. And I just wanted to make sure everybody understands that the bond, if we do a jail bond, that it probably will not be for another year and a half. And so that will give plenty of time for rates to come down as we expect them to. So all we would be doing here is imposing the tax that would begin we'd begin to get distributions January 1st. But you remember that the financial models we received on the jail bond actually included a full year's worth of jail tax receipts as essentially as cash to go into the project before the bond was even issued. So yeah, we would not immediately be moving to issuing that bond. That will be something that would be done quite possibly or probably more than a year from now.
Thank you. Move over to Councilor Hawk.
Yes, and to add to that, when the commissioners say each month that goes by costs a certain number of dollars, and more expenses. And of course, they're leaving out the part that if it was in place, we'd be paying that bond. And so when you're looking at a financial statement, you look at both the money that might be going out and many things having to do with it. And hopefully we will have more ability for our input to be listened to in the future. If we proceed with it for a jail tax, because once again, they're going to have to decide which buildings they're going to empty out downtown, and what we're going to do with those. And we have to prepare for paying two sets of utilities. It's just like at your house. If you decide to buy another house and you're still sitting on your present house, you're going to have to be paying two sets of expenses. So all of this other rhetoric about how much it's going to cost every month, but it just makes no sense whatsoever for anybody who really understands finances. But all of that being said, please move forward.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor Hogg. I'll look for other council comments on it. Councilor Iverson.
Yes, thank you. I really found that our conversation last night on this topic was really fruitful. And I really appreciated the folks that came and gave comment. I particularly noted that we heard last night that folks had taken time off of work just to come and give public comment. Really thankful that local media covered last night's meeting and the comments that were made. I think that it shows that even though sometimes we differ in opinions on these very important topics, that our democracy is alive and well here in Monroe County, and really thankful for that. I just wanted to point that out today.
Councilor Crossley.
Okay. I'll keep it brief because we got lots of other things that we need to go ahead and discuss. And I am in favor of the rate that we have advertised. It makes me feel comfortable in doing so. And I will say, though, another reason why it makes me feel comfortable is because as we first started having these conversations, that we talked about that some of this funds could be used for rehabilitative services. So that's really a big thing that I am interested in, because as a public commenter mentioned last night, and as we've heard in various ways of comment, we do need to think about how we think about incarceration. And I think that a portion of this could be used for rehabilitative services, and I dare to dream that we can do those things, and I would love to see how we can do that in the future. So for me personally, as Councilor Crossley, I'm in favor of this, but I'm also looking forward to seeing different ways that we can reduce recidivism by other alternatives just besides building a new jail facility. But again, I am in favor of this rate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Crossley. Councilor Wiltz.
Yes, I will be voting in favor of the tax. I can't say that I'm comfortable with it or feel in favor, but I recognize that it's our duty to finance the jail project and hopefully related justice projects. And I don't see viable alternatives that will provide an outcome of quality. And I don't want to jeopardize the project. So I will be voting in favor and appreciate the compromise that this body has worked toward to make that rate lower than the original proposal. And that really speaks a lot to, I think, the demeanor of our council and the spirit with which we typically work. And I am very appreciative of that.
Thank you very much, Councilor Wiltz. Councilor Hogg.
Yes, as many of you already know, I have voiced my concern about putting this tax in place when we cannot tell the taxpayer what specifically we're going to use it for. It can maybe a little this, a little that, whatever. And we've had enough time to have arrived at that. And I believe had we all worked together as a team and not as it has been recently, where we're just told where this location is going to be, even though the commissioners say to the public, no decision's been made, but then you have a meeting and it's like, this decision's been made. So I just feel like this is adding salt to the wound of the taxpayer to say, we are going to tax you and we'll let you know later exactly what we want to do with it. And I know that's a different opinion than the rest of you, and I respect what your opinion is. I just feel like that it's difficult to get that kind of compromise with others making this decision once we put the money in place, because then you're left with no cards in your hand to play. And thank you for being polite and listening to my concern.
Thank you for offering your concerns. We, in a moment, I'm going to go back to one last round through public comment on this item, so that if there are folks that wish to offer final comments, they may do so. And then after that, counselors, I'll make a comment and then we'll go to a vote on this. So members of the public, if you wish to make a comment here in the Nat U Hill, simply come forward either to this table or that podium you may pick, or raise your hand on Teams, and we will give you 3 minutes to talk in one final round of public comment on this matter. Anyone in the Nat U Hill? Yep, come on forward here. Counselor McKim's going to turn his laptop around.
Thank you. Good evening, council members. My name is Joe Davis. I'm a 30-year resident of Monroe County, and thank you for allowing me to share my comments tonight. It's possible that there will be a 2/7 reset of the county council with this new election. If there's a decision made and it's a mistake, those new members will have to live with this mistake that is being made. That has to be considered. Also, Councilor McKim is leaving. It might be most appropriate that he recuse himself and not vote, given those circumstances. This is a lot of money. Just recently, a representative from the city mayor's office came to the public comment session on Sunday and shared that the city would like to pony up. They would like to contribute. That money could change things. They are responsible. BPD is responsible for many of the arrests. Those individuals are being brought into the jail and they are held there until they go before the court. Why is the city not contributing toward this need that we have to serve our citizens and to not place all of the onus of payment on the county? The city has so much money that the mayor is giving every employee of the city a raise. Why can't we wait and see what's going to come about from those efforts. There's still plenty of time to make reasonable decisions about where the jail is going to be located, how large it's going to be, and how we are going to find other ways to prevent recidivism. Now is the time for the people to do the work. We can wait. I urge you to postpone this decision and make it next year. The public, the taxpayer, would appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll go to next speaker. On over. And if there's one on Teams, raise your hand and we will recognize you.
Good evening. My name is Seth Muchler, resident of Monroe County. I'll try to keep this short. I know you have a long meeting ahead of you, and I feel like you all know my perspective on this issue in many ways, and I want to respect that. I know you all have given this lots of thought and consideration. I know that many of you have sort of found where you feel on this. I have a sense as to where this vote's going to go tonight. So I just wanted to briefly respond to some of the things that I heard last night talked about, and then also I spoke briefly after the meeting with Councilmember Iverson about seats at the table. And I do hope that whatever happens after this vote, I know that things will continue to go, and I hope that the council has a seat at the table. And I also hope, and I know that this has happened, I want to be very clear, I'm not trying to say this hasn't already been happening. I commend you on the work you have already done. But even further moving forward, I hope that you continue to have seats at the table for people with lived experiences in the criminal legal system. And both in sort of very intimate, sort of bringing people who have those experiences, both former and current, like sort of individual consultants, and also hopefully doing some more widespread surveying. So that is just something that came to my mind in last night's conversation that I wanted to commend the thoughts there and sort of expand upon. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. I'll go to Teams. I see no hand. All right. I'll go to the room for one last round, and I see none. We will now close public comment on this. And I think I'm the only counselor that's not talked, but again, if there's another counselor that wanted to offer remarks, I don't want to stifle those. Counselor McKim.
Well, first of all, as somebody who was at the Sunday public meeting that was referenced by a member of the public, as were many of my other colleagues and some of the media in the room here as well, there was no such offer from the city to provide any funding or whatsoever. The city did send a representative, and that representative said they would support the locational choice that the county made for the jail, whatever it is. At least that's my kind of interpretation of it. You all may have your own gloss, but there was certainly not by any stretch of the imagination any offer of funding or even suggestion that there'd be any kind of assistance. Then also there was a mention that I should recuse myself because I will not be on the council next year. That I'm not even sure where to go with that, except that you don't. I mean, we all make decisions that may well live beyond our service on the council. I will certainly, if we impose this tax as a taxpayer, I will certainly be paying it. But no, we all make decisions that will outlive, presumably, our tenure on this council. So those are my only comments.
Thank you, Counselor McKim. Any other counselors? Counselor Hogg.
Right. What I wanted to also add that, yes, I was sitting very near the brand new government relations person from the city. Very nice gentleman. And yes, he sent a message from the mayor saying that they would, I don't remember exactly the words, but that wanted to say that they would work with the county with whatever location we chose, because I remember that he handed me the mic. I didn't grab it, I don't think. He handed it to me. And I said, well, I hope that would mean that the mayor and the city would support us if we would choose to go to Fullerton Pike. And of course, the gentleman was so brand new to Monroe County. He wasn't sure where Fullerton Pike was, but it sounded like a lovely place. And, and so, yes, I do recall those conversations. But I also want to say that because we might disagree on decisions, it does not mean there's a mistake. It just means that we have a different philosophy, and decisions are made by the public at the voting booth, and they have voted for these people, all 7 members, and Miss Cheryl Munson today, to sit here and represent the public. So if we have the majority who chooses one direction and the minority might choose another, it doesn't mean either party's wrong. It just means that's what the majority has chosen, and that's the way government works.
Thank you, Councilor Hawk. And I appreciate those comments very much. And I feel like every level of government needs to say that every once in a while. Both sides of the aisle need to say that. I'll make some final comments and then we will not belabor this. We've got some budget items that desperately need as much attention as what the jail has been given. At least for this year, that's what is needed. I'll just offer that I think that my position on this and trying to work towards a resolution has been hopefully fairly clear to the public, particularly in the last few weeks, as I believe in this chair, I've become a little bit more animated on the issue. And I think counselors probably hear that animation, both in our conversations we have in these meetings and elsewhere. I do believe that the policy of some past decision making has been a wait and see approach. And there's a time for wait and see, and there's a time for study and a time for consideration. And in my time of public service, I've watched every level of government use study and wait and see to put off things that need decisions today. I don't really think about elections in this too much, other than to say that when I originally ran for office, it wasn't to sit on the sidelines. I don't know what November holds for me, but I know that at least in the term I was elected to serve, me and Councilor McKim and Councilor Munson have about 2 months and some change to do some things. And in that, I intend to focus on this issue, our county employees, our services to people, including our health department, and whatever else I can get done before midnight hits on December 31st. And that staff knows that I mean that, because that's what we all do up here. This issue has sat for far too long. I do wish others in years past had done a few different things at a different strategic time. But my dad always had a saying about wishing in one hand and something else in the other. And that wishing and looking back will not get this issue done. And we've got to get this issue done. Constitutional care, as I said a few weeks ago, has to mean something. We do have a sheriff now that comes in and not only tells us about issues in the jail, but it narrates pretty well the bad issues. And I think that is a healthy thing for us. It may not be always healthy to discover and realize that, but I think it's a setting for future sheriffs to remember and do, and we know that this public cares about it. We've heard a lot of great conversations, both in emails, in testimony, by people that truly care about their neighbor. They care enough to be here 2 nights in a row. They care to follow this issue and to rally people around solutions. And that's what I love about this town. Much like what Councilor in this county, much like what Councilor Hawk is saying, people come in with solutions, white papers, articles, ideas, and heart, and sometimes a few other things, but they come in with those things because they want it to be better. I think that every decade or so we've had an issue and the community has responded in that. I'll be voting yes on this evening. I will say to my fellow councilors, I do not believe this is the last discussion on this jail by a long stretch of any form. I think us, our successors, and their successors will probably discuss this in some form or another, just like the counselors that sat here in the early to mid 80s, did with the Justice Building, and then almost immediately discussions started happening about, well, there's some things we need to think about. So this is much like our budget, which we'll go to shortly, an ever-working process towards getting it better. I will say this, what we put up with in demand has come a long way since the jail was about a building and a half that direction. And if anyone has any doubts about what the conditions were like in that building, read Charlotte Zietlow's book, where she, very animated, talks about what the sheriffs, the judges, and others talked about at that time about those conditions. We cannot go back to those conditions. We must go forward. And I see this vote as a small step towards that. I am always reluctant to ask taxpayers for anything. I do recognize that is our neighbors, that is our friends, that are human beings in that constitutional care facility, and they must be so. I'd rather I vote for this today than to have a judge come in later and tell me how I will vote on this, where that will go, and what that will look like without a care to the world towards public comment, which we've now taken twice in 48 hours on this issue. So with that, I will end my remarks. Thanks for listening to all that. All right. We will go to a roll call vote on this ordinance, please.
Yeah.
No.
Make sure that mic's working, because this one will want to be recorded for records. So that's a McKim, yes, a Hawk, no.
I'll start over if that's okay. Okay. Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor,
No.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard.
Yes.
Motion passed 5-1.
Okay. All right. Ordinance has been adopted. We will go now back on the agenda to item 3, which is the 2025 Monroe Fire Protection District Budget Public Hearing. And council, in that regard, I open that up for public comment. If any member of the public wishes, let me just make sure that we're clear on this. We've been jumping around a little bit. So if you have a public comment on the 2025 Monroe Fire Protection District budget, you may come forward here in the Nat U Hill to this podium or raise your hand on Teams.
You not have to read that into the record.
That budget? I'll go
This
to,
is their only public hearing. This is their official public hearing, so I think it has to be read into the record.
We've only done that on adoption before.
I don't think it has to be read into the record.
Ms. Turner King, what do you think?
I don't think it has to be read in the record. In the past, we do read it, and it's at the first reading, which I believe is scheduled for October 15th.
Be here on this. A reading of this in entirety will occur on October 15th, and that meeting's at 5 o'clock, same as the others.
And they have public comment at that time. I think public comment's over by then.
Yeah, but let me say this. Let me just be clear, because we got a little technical jargon going up here. If you are a member of the public and you have come to this building tonight, the Monroe County Courthouse, and you have thoughts on that budget by that Monroe Fire Protection District, I want you to raise your hand on Teams or come forward in this room. All are welcome on public comment. Counselor McKim.
And I just wanted to make it clear that we are not on any of these 3 public hearings tonight. We are not taking votes. These are purely, we were taking testimony from the public on these 3 units budgets, but not.
And you could go to the local budget notice to see what the budget is, but not everybody has done that. I just think it's really hard for public to have a comment about something they haven't been told the numbers, but.
We have to have a public hearing, and then we can, and once we have a public hearing, we have to wait 10 days to adopt. So we can't technically have another public hearing.
But I
yeah,
want to go.
I'm just- I'm
hold
just
on.
making-
I
yeah.
want to go back here a second. Now unless I've blanked out the last month, Chief Dillard and the Monroe Fire Protection District came in here, presented their budget. It was fairly discussed, and we asked questions.
Public hearing.
It was, yeah, but the public had that camera on and ability to watch and hear that. Am
Correct.
I remembering this incorrectly?
Yes.
That was public.
And then all of that information then is uploaded into Gateway for the public to review.
Okay. So there's nothing happening in secret here, just to be clear. Okay. All right. Any members of the public? Mr. Davis, do you want to make a comment? Come on forward.
Hello, thank you for hearing my comments. Recently, we had almost 2 months of drought. It ended up reaching a point where there was a burn ban in the county. And this is just a harbinger of what's to come. The budget needs to be adequate such that when these fires start in our county, when it's dry out there, when there is opportunity for great loss of personal property and homes and businesses, we need to have enough funds and systems in place so that we can adequately respond to those situations of unpredictable crisis. The time is now for us to prepare for this inevitable future. Let's not be too short on making sure that we are mitigating the risks that we all might face. Now is the time for us to do what we can to serve and protect our citizens. Thank you.
Very much. Any other public comment? Looking to teams and back to the room. All right. Now we will go to council comments on this budget now that public comment has closed. Councilor Hawk.
Yes, it's probably come as no surprise to many of the folks in this room that I've had many phone calls. Some people are actually looking at the budget and interacting and have been trying to follow along with what the district is doing. Once again, I want to call upon the district to have their meetings here in the public meeting room. Councilmember Monson agreed with me at the last meeting that would be especially important to do around budgeting time because it is difficult to hear what is being said in the room. And as a reminder, they changed the budget either the day before or the day that they presented it to us for our review. Now, that is not to say I object to this budget. That is just to say that this is an opportunity for the public to hear about it, and yet they're not here. But I bet they'll just go ahead and call me anyway. I don't know. They call me if they want a pothole filled. So I'm just saying. I know that they've added extra people. There are a lot of people, taxpayers, who think, well, maybe they have added too many too quickly, whatever. And that might be so until you really need them at your house. Or maybe the equipment that they have, there's more equipment, but then it depends on how many different units are being called out. Now, I know that there's been a major debate between whether or not they'll go to Richland Township or really go to Bean Blossom Township, which then affects Richland Township as we all know, because that's who we're hearing from. But that really is their choice. That's not the county commissioners will hear it, but for those people who are listening tonight, that's not the county council's choice. It's the people's choice. They take their information to the auditor if they want to object to that. That happens then with the commissioners. But I just want to remind folks that are calling me, call your commissioners. They're the people who will decide. It's not the county council.
Thank you very much, Councilor Hawk. Councilor Iverson.
I just want to take this opportunity to remind the public that the IU football team is 6-0. Now, why do I mention that? I mention that because there are increased crowds going to be coming to our community that's going to need EMT service potentially. This budget contains in it the ability for our community to have additional emergency services in the event that we have crowds that could potentially overwhelm our system. I think that's vitally important, and I want to point that out in this budget. I will also point out that in the case of high heat days, as we've written in the Monroe County Climate Resilience Plan, that the Fire Protection District plays a major role in keeping our community safe as we see these high heat days increasing. So this is I just wanted to make those 2 points and talk about sports a little bit too.
It's a good time to talk about it. Councilor McKim.
Yeah, actually, I was wondering if since the topic of Bean Blossom Township was brought up, if anyone from either the auditor's office or county legal could give us kind of an update on where things stand, just as far as the process goes. If, you know, in terms of the numbers of letters that the auditor's office has received and so on.
Surely the auditor's here. I think she's paid to be here. Yeah, I think she is.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, everyone. I do not have that information in front of me, but certainly can get that to you and provide that tomorrow, as far as you know, any letters received. I'm actually home with strep throat, so I apologize. I'm not there in person.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, people sick. Everybody's sick.
Yeah.
I get right. I received information. What's that? Last week, that the certain number of letters to say they did not want to join the fire protection, that the envelopes that he had opened was already in was more than what it was going to take for it to go to the county commissioners. But what I don't understand is, if it goes to the county commissioners, even if the public has said they do not want to do it, some want it, some don't want it. So that's the reason why, you know, it's a fine line here. But if they have letters saying they don't want it, will the commissioners then, must they do it, or must they only just take that into consideration? Do we know? I've been asked that, and I don't know the question.
I'll have to look up that process. I'm not comfortable enough without reviewing the law to speak to it right now.
Yeah, I know that's not your. Is Mr. Cockrell? Is he the one who's handling?
I think Mr. Cockrell's the one who's handling it, and he's currently, I think, in Denver. So.
Which is not in Monroe County.
No.
And to a point, what we have before us is the budget for the fire district, and that is an issue before the commissioners. And so if there's no other council comment on the budget before us, I'm going to move us along from that. All right. This has been the public hearing on the Monroe Fire Protection District budget, and we appreciate very much Chief Dillard and the fine team being here with us for that. All right.
Could I just have one quick thing?
Yeah,
Before you close,
sure.
when they added that responsibility with the addition of having the ambulances and their personnel, the fighters had this added on as a responsibility, and they took on that training and so forth. And so I think we need to recognize that they have additional responsibilities more than what they had when they joined the fire district. I just wanted to add that because I don't think we had included that in the conversation.
Yeah. Well, and one thing, I could go back to that conversation when we had it, and I did a home internship with my father, who's now passed along, and got to see our ambulance coverage prior, and the delays and waiting for those secondary runs. I'm probably not saying this right, Chief, but it's the runs that are folks that need to go in transit from one medical facility back to home or to some other facility. It's not an emergency response. And I got to spend about a whole night listening to hospital staff talk about the ability to do or not do that prior to us getting those ambulances. Now, I'm not going to say that those ambulances are going to cure and solve all that, but they were amazed in the hospital that a county official didn't know how bad this was. And so the demands on our folks are probably only going up, and probably more, not less, ambulances may be needed down the road. Councilor Wiltz.
So my takeaway from this is that our funding of ambulances is the reason that IU is 6-0.
That's what Councilor Iverson says. Chief's not nodding no. He thinks Chief Dillard's responsible for 6-0. All right. Anything else, friends? All right, let's leave this budget, and thank you, Chief and friends, for being here. Let's move on to item 4. Council, I'm going to open the 2025 Monroe County Waste Reduction District budget for public comment. If any members of the public wish to speak on this budget, please either step forward to this podium in the Nat U. Hill room or raise your hand on Teams. And again, we heard this in our week of budget hearings. Mr. McGlasson's here, and he explained to us what's going on at the district, waste reduction district.
District formerly known as solid waste.
It's got more names than Prince, and much more cool. What did you say? The artist formerly known. Mr. Davis.
Thank you. Recently, California sued the plastics industry for the false presentation that plastics were recyclable. We have a glut of plastics that are being handled by the county, and they essentially are just going straight to the landfill. Maybe they are weighed, but we need to provide more in the budget so that there can be some proactive opportunity lessons in which the public can be informed to not use single-use plastics, that we come up with some other container system, because we're drowning in plastics. And the waste reduction that we're doing is not enough. We need to put more efforts in reducing this in our waste stream. So please add more so that we can educate the public as to how they can be more responsible in their own lives and unburden the taxpayers in having to deal with this glut of plastic waste in our lives. Thank you.
Okay, any other public comments? Looking to teams, looking back to the room. Are there any council comments on the district, or pardon me, the Monroe County Waste Reduction District budget? All right, seeing none, with no further comments, the public hearing for the 2025 Monroe County Waste Reduction District budget is now closed, with public comments noted. We will move to item 5 on our agenda, actually 6, I should technically say. It's item 6, the 2025 Monroe County budget public hearing. And just for memorization, which most folks know, this is the bulk of the 6, we did 6 days all together. This is the bulk of about 5.2, I would say. So we'll open this up. And if you're a member of the public who wish to speak on the budget of Monroe County for 2025, please either step forward to this podium in the Nat U Hill or raise your hand on Teams.
Thank you. The Monroe County Sheriff's Department is sadly lacking the funds it needs to perform their duties. I did a ride-along with Sergeant Kyle Molden this past Thursday. Though we only went out in his vehicle, his Durango, for about a half hour, because that's all we had left in our appointment, we had to pull over a car going down South College without its lights on. The Sheriff's Department is the provider of protection, serve and protect of last resort. They are having to come in and handle the other jurisdictions, IUPD, Steinsville, no representation right now, Ellettsville, Bloomington Police Department. They have to spend their time serving these other districts. A system needs to be set up in which, just like when you're in a taxi, that meter is thrown, and that as soon as a deputy is providing a service for someone outside of the district, then that district's budget needs to immediately start populating Monroe County's budget, because they have too few funds and they are stretched thin as they are. It's necessary to understand this and ask for other districts to be more accountable. The county is hurting. There is not much money. As I mentioned, the mayor is giving everyone who works for the city a raise. Why can't the city provide some funds for the county? The county is serving the city. We need absolutely to start throwing the meter. Anytime the Monroe County Sheriff's Department is serving another district, that meter has to be ticking so we can establish a baseline of our real needs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other public comments? All right, we'll go to council comments at this point. And I know councilors have talked a great deal about the budget and will yet still. Counselor McKim.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know if Michelle was going to talk about this, but my understanding is that you do have or are about to have a kind of a new version of the budget that incorporates the cost of living adjustment.
Something, so hold on just a moment.
No, she just mentioned right before this meeting that she.
And again, we will not be voting on any budget tonight. This is just to look, and she'll send this to us.
Yes, I was able to, I got everyone's COLA changes in, got it into Lao. And so what you see here is you'll have I'll send this to you, but you'll get it's a spreadsheet of every fund that had personnel. So, so for example, the general fund, the original request was $52,956,321. With all of the COLA changes, it's gone up to $53,930,596. So the overall, all of the budgets with regards to personnel, we started at 118 million, and we're going to 120 million.
And will you update the draft 4B and send out a new one with these numbers incorporated?
Yes,
Okay.
and that was, and I was, Bree wasn't available, so we're going to maybe like add a column or a line to show this is where we started in the draft 4B, and this is the COLA adjustment in the draft 4B. So, yep, I have, finally got all of everybody's information, had to go through, double check everybody's calculations, and so this is, I believe, is what is correct.
Councilor Iverson.
And Michelle, can you remind those watching what rate of increase this is?
Oh, this is a 3.2% increase.
Thank you.
Councilor Hawk.
We say what's the rate increase for a levy control fund, and if everybody's assessed value went up more than that, I mean, we're still talking about an increase. So if you looked at Larry DeBoer's information that he sent out, I hope you'll all take time because he is the expert, and that information's been sent out. And part of what they had indicated, and of course something that we all know, is that what has caused this spike in property taxes is not just that, of course, it's the growth in the assessed value, but it also is in the debt funds, which is not a part of that levy controlled funds. And it's when you have a rate controlled fund. So all of those rate controlled funds, the CUME funds and so forth. And then you add on debt, which is not always in a budget. That's what's raising everybody's taxes up. So, I mean, I understand, but I just don't think we should be sending out the message anything about we're keeping the rate the same, because I really oppose saying that, because that's not correct. It's not a correct thing to give that information to the public. It's misleading. Just my 2 cents worth.
Thank you, Councilor Hawk.
And I do have another question, but whenever it's my turn.
Go right ahead.
Oh, okay. What I wanted to look at is what was the projected revenue for county general, and then what was the projected expenses for county general.
Michelle, are you able to?
Is that something that We know.
We put all of that information into Gateway, but I don't have that right
in
here
my
in front.
head.
Yeah, I don't have that right here in front of me. Sorry.
Would it be
I can get
possible?
that.
Would it be possible to screenshot or send that out to council?
Well, and that will be in the draft Form E as well. That'll just be
The revenue was. That's one number. Then we've got another new number to look at the bottom line. I don't know why that.
We can certainly send that out and do that, Councilor Wiltz.
Half for a minute. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilors, other questions, comments? Councilor McKim.
Yeah, so and I understand that it doesn't sound like there's much appetite for including it in this particular budget, but I really do hope that either this council or the next will seriously reconsider including the sheriff's pension proposal. I think they made a really good case, and I hope that I think we do have the available revenue to do that, and so I hope that everybody will at least reconsider giving them that tool that's so important for recruitment and retention.
Are you saying when we consider that this time next year that we would do that? Because the state is working on legislation or a better understanding of how the sheriff's pension work.
It could be done as an additional appropriation also.
Right. I'd like to wait and see what the state is going to send us directions.
Understood.
One thing, just to be transparent, I think I'm still back to you. But one thing, just to be transparent on that, I appreciate, and I want to say this for the public record because I know that there are deputies that will care about this, and I want them to know these things and not just think it's all behind closed doors. The sheriff's office has approached a number of us about revisiting that. The instruction that I kind of offered after, and this is just one member of this council, but viewing the budget as I saw it coming together was that while I did not foresee in this current budget a will of the council to figure this into that long term, that did not mean a no, and that I think it would be productive for the sheriff and Chief Deputy Parker, who I had particularly talked to work with the liaisons for the sheriff in determining when that might be a time to make it another appearance here if that is something that would be of interest. And I'm not putting that on that liaisons, but I think that is a good example of how we can figure out potential next steps before it would come into this body and face other difficulties. And I know that with 2 liaisons, that's a strong start. I also want to just note, I think in the coming year, a return to a stronger liaison form may help us with some of these issues. I don't fully know what that means. I think liaisons, there's things that we all need and vice versa, departments need, and I think maybe we can revisit some of those things. Councilor Hawk.
Yes, and we've changed our directive. The liaison is not there to advocate for whatever department they're assigned to. The liaison is there to understand the budget and to assist if they need questions answered having to do with the process. But it's not actually they're not there assigned to advocate for the department. Now, if we've changed that and we want to be different from that, and I know that in private business, it would sound a great deal more like you're there to advocate for one thing or the other, but that's not what this was set up for originally. Thank you, Dave Hamilton, for helping us get that going. But I just want to make sure I understand that, because if we're there to advocate, well, all of us like some departments better than others. So
those are good. Those are good points to make. Here's where I think I'm practically speaking, and you know about my lecture about getting things done. I think if two liaisons for a department might be skeptical about an approach of a department, and you've got 7 members on a board, I think a good first step would be to always try to work through liaisons to figure out what headaches exist, what externalities need to be done, so that we can then have a productive meeting where it starts to move with some of those questions answered. I have observed since 2019 coming on council where liaisons were strong advocates for their departments and or needs, and where otherwise they may not have necessarily been at different occasions. But I also believe if a liaison is surprised or maybe not fully informed by something going on from a department, elected official or otherwise, it's not well served. In fact, that's poorly served, and that's how we get to long meetings, delay of action, inaction, distraction, headaches, and headlines. So I think that's just my comments there. All right. Well, I think we've fairly discussed a number of things in this budget that may be in it and may not. But with that, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing for the 2025 Monroe County budget. And council, that takes us to council comments on other items that you all may wish to discuss. Councilor Iverson.
Thank you, President Deckard. Is this working? I think it is. Oh, today is the first day of early voting. By all accounts, there was a nice line. And I want to remind the public that early voting will happen from 8 to 6 p.m. October 8th through the 11th, which is all of this week. So please head over to 302 South Walnut Street in Bloomington to exercise your democratic right to vote.
Iverson. Councilor Crossley.
Voting. I just wanted to say that I am a little concerned about the traffic flow in that particular area. It is a great time for Walnut Street to go down a one lane, and I'm being very sarcastic because I have to get stuck in the traffic as I go to work every single day, and my alternate route is also under construction. So all of the concepts of constructions and all that other stuff just seem to be missed right now. But the reason why I say that I'm a little concerned about the traffic flow of that particular area is because we have the Bloomington Transit that's right there. Everything is all down to one particular lane. This is could be potentially another huge turnout in a historical election. I think I read today in an article from the B Square about 25 people are already in line a few minutes before the start. And if we are going to continue down that trail or on that trend, then we have to do a better job of traffic flow. I think we are setting ourselves up for, and I hope I'm wrong, and I really don't like speaking things into existence, but I really would hope that we are not setting ourselves up for a moment where somebody gets hurt just trying to go exercise their right to vote. There needs to be more signage in that area. There needs to be more area that is directing people to park, as well as being able to allow people to, try to find other ways to get there if they can. But I just wanted to really go on record and say that every day that I drive into work and I'm passing Election Central, that is a concern of mine. And I really hope the powers that be will work towards making that something where we can work on that. So I just wanted to say that. The other thing that I wanted to say is it was a really good meeting last week with the CIB conversation. I really appreciated that. And one of the things that I actually heard is I think the mayor said we can do this in other forums where we all sat at the table together. And we heard through public comment here that, the city is saying this, but again, those are all concepts of plans until we can come together. So I would really like all of our ideas, our wishes, our hopes, our dreams to become a reality. Actually sit down at the table with all the powers that be in county and city government electeds and not talk about it, but just to be about it. So I hope that that wish comes true sometime soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Crossley. Any other comments? Councilor Hawk.
If it's just time for just general comments, I don't know whether you folks have seen any of the email coming from Bean Blossom Township having to do with the community building there in Steinsville. We know that tragedies can happen as we have natural tragedies that's going on right now throughout the country. And so we know, and because we've already witnessed it, that natural disasters can happen. And when they happen near the Steinsville area before, people could rely on using that community building for shelters, and which they were prepared for that. I think we've seen that they've also used it for the Red Cross. They've used it for people to come and fill out whatever forms for the loss for the property, etc. But a lot of that could not have happened had they lost their electricity, had they lost the power to that building. Now, as we all know, Ellisville is a small community that really has my heart. I'm not the liaison, but I am that is in my district. I just hope that we will recognize that when they've asked us, could we help them out with getting a generator, and they're trying to put the dollar amounts that they need, why we couldn't do that with the ARPA funds and allow them to move forward, making sure that that next thing that might happen, because we never know when it will happen, that they will have a generator there, that electricity will still be going on to that community building. Now, I understand there are some folks who think, well, that community doesn't belong to the county, and so maybe that's not where our dollars should go. I would like to protest that kind of a statement, because we rely on them to act as a shelter and being the response. And our emergency department accounts on it, as many others do. And also, we need to recognize that our ARPA dollars are going in lots of places where we don't own the property. But I think it makes a great deal of sense for us. I don't know what the price is going to be. They're working on trying to get a price for us. But I hope that we will collectively support having that in that spot.
Yeah. Other council comments? I do appreciate those, Councilor Hawk. I know that we've got ongoing concerns with that. We've got ongoing monitoring of our rural transit situation, lots to figure out with that. And I appreciate your message last week about edit possibilities there. We will need solutions for all of that in your district for sure.
Right, and the reason why I thought, and I'm not saying we'd take the money out of it, but it is the method of coming up with a percent that we would have nexus to go to say it, because it's all split up according to population. So if you took the population of what of Ellisville and the population, and actually we don't have to look at the population because it's already split up according to population. So if you add the revenue for edit that the county got and the revenue for edit that Ellisville got, and you got add those two together, then you've got a total of the pot of money. And then you figure out what the percent is of the total pot that Ellisville has versus the total pot. Then you look at how much we need to come up with rural transit. And I'm not remembering the numbers, but let's say if the amount was like 11% of the total of revenue for edit that Ellisville got, then they might consider, well, I don't want to tell Ellisville what to do. They may say they can't afford a penny, but the percent of it, of the total, I think it's the 159,000, something like that, that's needed for rural transit. And then you come up with a far different number than what was presented to Ellisville, which was like $70-some thousand, which we all know that's the price of one of their, firefighters or law enforcement. I mean, it's a huge chunk of money. And if you're looking only at the population, that makes, I just thought this sounded like perhaps a way for us to look at the numbers until we maybe get some better direction coming from the state. So, but I don't want Ellisville to think that I'm suggesting they do anything other than what they have to do with their budget. It's just a suggestion.
I appreciate none of them are. Here we go. This one. Okay. I appreciate the continuing working on that, and I'd love to see something where everybody does something. I think that we put our values there, and we'll keep going towards that. No further comments before the council. We're going to go ahead and adjourn us for this evening. Thank you so much, friends.
Thank you.